One of my favorite holidays is approaching, Halloween, and I cannot wait for the absolute mess this year is going to be with the cultural appropriation nonsense. In past years on Halloween, people have just lost their minds over costumes because of this notion of cultural appropriation. You can't dress up as Pocahontas or Crazy Eyes because that's racist and you're appropriating that culture. But remember, it's always fine if you dress up as white stuff. White people don't actually have individual cultures, we're just one collective. No white history has ever been fetishized because they don't exist. Now, I'd like to say all people are getting offended by is people legitimately fetishizing different cultures or making fun of different cultures or races and disrespecting them, because that would be reasonable to be offended by. But that's not all. Cultural appropriation literally means the adoption or use of elements of one culture by members of a different culture, which is for some reason seen as a largely negative phenomenon, mostly because it's being labeled racist by Tumblr, who has no concept of what that word actually means. Here are a few of the things that people are actually outraged about when they discuss cultural appropriation. People celebrating cultures they love that aren't necessarily their own. People wearing clothing items or accessories they think are beautiful from cultures they aren't trying to erase or disrespect. People dressing up as their favorite characters from TV shows or movies or books and trying to be somewhat accurate about it. Jokes, satire, and humor, and just fun in general. Now, there are legitimate times where there is blatant racism, or people negatively dressing up as another race to stereotype them. These are separate instances from people dressing up in a costume to celebrate a character they like or a culture they find beautiful, and they should be treated as separate situations. Yet instead, they are being lumped in the same category, and all being portrayed as racist. And Tumblr, I get that you think this is trying to erase cultures, and that I'm just white-splaining, but it is very dangerous to genuinely believe that one race has a monopoly on a certain thing. The idea of cultural appropriation and not allowing us to engage in aspects of other cultures creates for segregation, usually based on race. Just imagine, sorry, you can't work here. This is a Japanese restaurant, and you're native. Our food is a part of our culture, not yours. It's Oktoberfest at the bar today. Can all our non-German employees go home? You can't wear the costume because that would be offensive. Before you tell me this is ridiculous, it is the actual definition of the word. One culture using elements of a different culture, and that's deemed as offensive. I mean, how far can we take this? Greeks loved their philosophy. It was a part of their culture. What am I supposed to do if I want to take a philosophy course? Use that stupid chart and check my toe length to see if I have Greek ancestry and qualify for the course? It's nonsense. Accepting that other people can enjoy aspects of different cultures doesn't mean we forget the origins of things or don't educate ourselves. It just means we don't say certain groups of people have monopolies on certain things based on their race or where they were born. There was a time where rich white people thought they had a monopoly on freedom, wealth, and the front of the bus. Or where men thought they had a monopoly on pants, and those just weren't things women were allowed to wear because that was deemed offensive. Or when straight people had a monopoly on marriage. How is that any different from black people having a monopoly on hip-hop music, or Indian people having a monopoly on wearing jewels on their faces? I get that things have historical context behind them. So did the definition of marriage with its deep roots in religion. But people were happy to offend those with religious ties to marriage in order to bring about equality. In fact, there are a lot of people among different cultures who find others taking time to learn about their culture, wear their clothes, and try their food flattering. From my own experience, I've gone to a Japanese festival wearing a kimono with a Japanese family who bought it for me and invited me to go. Not one person came up to me offended. Yet I'm sure I can find a blog by a non-Japanese individual telling me I'm a racist for doing this. We could wage wars of cultural appropriation. We could whine like children over things in our culture's histories that were appropriated ages ago. I mean, who started dreadlocks? Was it Neanderthals, early Europeans, Africans? I don't know. God knows every culture is stolen from each other. We could get the government to fund a unit of historians to work out where every piece of clothing came from, every hairstyle, every cuisine, every mannerism, and hand out lists to people based on their race and origin, telling them what they are and aren't allowed to wear, participate in, or eat. Or instead, we could be ecstatic that others want to celebrate and be interested in our culture. We could be excited to be a part of inclusive change, where we aren't trying to segregate ourselves through offense. Just because someone wore a piece of clothing from a certain culture to a music festival or a Halloween party doesn't make that individual a racist. It doesn't mean they're trying to erase that culture, and it doesn't make the item they wore any less significant. You can wear a war bonnet to a music festival or put a Burger King crown on your head, but when a Native American chief wears his war bonnet and a king wears his crown, we understand and respect the difference. I appreciate different cultures, but I appreciate individual human beings even more, and I don't want to see them segregated and arguing because of others participating in or wearing things people believe to belong exclusively to one group based on uncontrollable factors in our life that we were born into. If you want to wear feathers in your hair, wear feathers in your hair. No one owns them simply because of how they were born. The same way I don't own braids or Viking helmets. This Halloween, let's celebrate cultural appreciation instead of whining over appropriation.